Hello.
Hello. How
Did
you
it
doing,
work?
babies? Is it
I
working?
don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, it started.
It started.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Don't worry. It all worked out in the end.
It
A
all-
few technical glitches at the beginning there.
It's
But you guys,
okay.
just calm down. Just calm down.
Easier said than done. It's like
We're like, what happened?
what's happening? It's like in that airplane movie where there's like a bomb hits a fireworks factory and there are fireworks going off and everything, and the police are saying, they're going, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. It's like, calm down, there's nothing to be afraid of here. Yes, there is.
Look at all these lovelies
Hi,
here
Denise.
with
Hi,
us.
Alexa. Hi, Teresa and Rose and Marsha and Melanie.
Hi.
It's all good to see you guys.
Hi, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Erica and Ellen and Anne and Marianne.
Oh, Vancouver Island. That's a lovely part of the world.
Kristen and Mary.
How are you guys?
How are you? Oh my
Tell
God.
us everything.
Are you well? Are your families well? Yes.
Yes.
They can't say that we can hear.
No.
But I know some of you are probably ill, either with COVID-19 or something else. Some of you have family members who are ill, and some of you are facing great losses, and lots of you are sheltering in place. Lock it down, peoples. It's getting kind of weird in here, isn't it?
And some of you are working on the front lines every day.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Healthcare workers, grocery store workers, everyone who's still going out there and taking risks. We are beyond grateful to you for what you're doing.
The time has come when heroes are acknowledged not as those who take life, but as those who sustain it.
I love that so much.
And we love you, everyone who's doing any kind of job like that. You mothers and fathers who are stuck at home with your school-age children or your babies. I was just reading, not to cheer you up or anything, I was reading that people actually can have post-traumatic stress disorder from being quarantined with lots of little ones to take care of. It's very stressful. It's not a joke.
Yes.
So yeah, we've got such wonderful folks here.
It's
Betsy
nice
and
to
Maggie
see you.
and all.
Happy Easter
Donna,
to those who
everybody.
celebrate.
Oh yes, happy Easter. It's a time of resurrection, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Renewal.
Yeah.
And I'll take a day of renewal. Well, I'll get out of here and let you do your thing.
Okay.
I'll see you guys on the other side.
All righty, guys. So, I spoke to a group of people online earlier this week, and I was talking about something I called the light inside the dark, which is something I got from the poet John Tarrant. And I thought, well, I'll start by describing the darkness. And that way they'll know how dark it is. And then they'll be able to find the light inside the dark. So I started talking about how dark things have gotten. And about 5 or 7 minutes into the presentation, the host had to come in and stop me because people were panicking. They did not need to be told how dark it is. Okay. So I switched immediately to talking about the light that is inside every darkness. And I want to talk to you about how to reach that place, that light, by cultivating fearlessness. Because fear is everywhere right now. Fear you can get in bundles all around you. You can get it from everyone in your neighborhood. You can get it from your whole family. You can get it from any news story. You can get it from a dry cough that may or may not turn into something worse. It's not funny out there at all. But you can use this as an opportunity to cultivate fearlessness, because in order to gain a virtue or skill or strength, we have to actually go into the stress of it. So my son Adam's been doing Skype workouts with his trainer from the gym. He goes into our little home gym spot and lifts weights. And the idea behind lifting weights, I'm sure you know, is to tear muscle tissue through overuse. And the reason you do that, if you follow that with a rest and the body heals itself, it heals literally strong at the broken places. The muscle gets bigger because it's creating more tissue to help with the tearing. As it repairs, it gets bigger and stronger. And if we don't use our muscles that way, it's use it or lose it, right? So it's a destruction of muscle tissue, but it's actually a transcendence of building, a strengthening. And that's what I keep saying about this pandemic. Don't say destruction, say transformation. There is a destructive aspect, no question. Just like there really is muscle damage when you lift weights, no question. But it can be toward a greater end. So the way you work with fear in my book, and I have lots of it, so I can always practice. We have weights around that we can lift everywhere. I think of it as a weight, and I think I can move into fearlessness deliberately, but it's hard. It's really hard. And then I put the weight down. Fearlessness. So it's like, okay, I'm practicing my fearlessness stuff. Now I'm exhausted. Put it down. Over and over and over, I go straight into my own fear. And then I do this technique for lifting the weight that I call going into fearlessness. So here it is. It's very simple. First, I want you to just think of a fear that has been haunting you. I'm sure it will be easy to come up with. My big one at the beginning of the epidemic was this virus is coming for all of us. I just had that thought rolling round and around in my head along with feelings of panic. Now, what we typically do when we have a thought that makes us panic is that we try to get away from the thought. So anything that reminds us of the thought, we try to avoid. Like if we're afraid of getting sick, then one typical way of handling it is not to talk about it, not to think about it. Oh, I don't want to think about all the terrible things that might happen. You know, the catastrophic fantasies that roll out in the brain, they're not pleasant. And so we try to hunker down and stop them. And we might try to numb them with substances or drugs, or we may try to avoid them by sleeping all day long, or we may plug into the TV and just glue our brains to it and be distracted all day. And by the way, all of these are perfectly legitimate things to do when you're this scared. I am a big fan of anything that doesn't actually hurt your body or your soul. But the way we avoid fear actually makes us more fearful. There's a psychologist, brilliant psychologist named Stephen Hayes, who spent his whole life studying this. He himself had panic attacks, and he was scared all the time. And he ran from everything that reminded him of his fear. But what he found was that as he ran away from things, everything he saw in the search to avoid, in the effort to avoid his pain, his fear, started to make him afraid. So, for example, he tried to meditate and he would tell himself to relax. And then he had a panic attack, in the middle of saying relax. And after that, the word relax triggered panic attacks for him. And he saw that he'd been running from it his whole life, and it was chasing him everywhere. And this is how people end up like becoming agoraphobic and staying in their houses even when they could go out. Wouldn't that be nice? Because they're just too afraid of everything. If you run from fear, it follows you everywhere because it's inside you. So finally, what Stephen Hayes learned to do is he stopped and he had a panic attack and he said, you know what? I'm going to stay here. I'm going to outlast this thing. I'm going to stare it in the eyes until one of us is dead. And he just stayed through a whole panic attack. And it actually passed, he writes, more quickly than a lot of his previous panic attacks. It was not fun. It was not pleasant. But staying when something frightens you, going right into it, letting yourself acknowledge the fearful thing that is in your face, and then refusing to leave, that's step one of becoming fearless. This is when I read this, I realized, oh, courage is not something that comes for you. It's something you do. Courage is something you have to do. It's a verb, really. So once you've stopped running and you've looked your fear straight in the eye, then you can start contradicting the message that fear is giving you. And this is very vital because we may have just random, like, screamy thoughts in our heads, especially these days, but eventually they lead to fearful thoughts. And you and I have talked a million times about how most animals are afraid when there's a danger right in the room with them. And as soon as the danger is gone, they relax, which is the way to stay healthy. But for us, we're scared when the danger's in the room. And then when the danger leaves, we're scared it'll come back. Or we think about how scared we were before. Or we think about similar scary things that could happen at any moment. Right now, there is so much to be scared of. Oh my Lord, it's just, fear is in such abundance, and our thoughts grab the headlines and they grab what we know about the progression of illness and what we know about our own mortality. And unlike every other animal on earth, we suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer, whether or not we ourselves are sick or losing anyone. So when you have looked your fear in the eye, write it down. Mine was, this virus is coming for all of us. What you start doing then is science. This is how you get to be fearless. You bring the scalpel of the mind into this fray of fear, and you say, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to examine you to see if you're actually as true as you feel. And I've been doing this forever. Those of you who do the Byron Katie work, Byron Katie is a spiritual teacher who uses a specific technique, and part of it involves looking for facts that actually don't support your fears. So I thought, okay, this virus is coming for all of us. Is that true? No, not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody who gets it is going to die from it. It's not really coming at all. It just lives inside hosts, and we travel about and give it new places to spread. So as we stay inside and follow the government's advice and do the things that keep the spread lower, it can't do anything to jump across the gaps that are more than 6 feet between person and person. So the way I'm thinking is, really, actually, is my fear this virus is coming for all of us? Is it factually true? And I have to have scrupulous adherence to my integrity, to not just want to say, yes, it's true, I'm scared. And of course it's true, because have you seen the news or not? I have to be like, no, science, man. I'm going to face fear, because courage is something you do, not something that comes to rescue you. And then I'm going to do science, because I believe in logic and intellect. That's what our fabulous minds were meant to do, not create catastrophic fantasies of every bad thing that could happen, most of which don't, some of which do, admittedly. But if you look for disconfirmation of your worst fears, I found, like, that thought isn't true. The coronavirus isn't coming for all of us. So then if I jump to the end of the Byron Katie work, with apologies to those of you who are doing it by the numbers, you want to look and see, is the antithesis of your hypothesis truer than the hypothesis? So I will break it down for you like this. The great philosopher Hegel talked about the way we need to prove things evidentiarily is to say, here's my hypothesis. Now I go look for anything that is opposite of it, and I see if that's truer than my hypothesis. So my hypothesis was, this virus is coming for all of us. I poked holes in it by looking at the facts, and then I tried the antithesis, the absolute opposite. And for me, it was, we're all coming for this virus. And I thought, Yes, we are. In my new brave state of mind, it occurs to me that all the scientists in the world are looking at this, and all the medical people, and everyone has a stake in it. And we're all doing everything we can to defeat it. And we will, by God, beat this thing. We're all coming for that virus. And then I thought things like millions of jobs are disappearing, which is true, right? I mean, 16 million people filed for unemployment last week, or some ungodly number. But are millions of jobs disappearing, or are they all going latent? Because are they all going dormant because we're suddenly becoming still? So they're not disappearing. We're breaking them down, which is different. So I poked at that for a while. And then I did the antithesis. Millions of jobs are appearing. I thought. It really is true what Ro the Gracious Badger said at the beginning of the broadcast today. We are starting to see who's really important in the world, and it's the people who nurture and care for one another. And they've been jobs that have been shunted to the back. I mean, paramedics get much less funding than like sports stuff. And we are going to start being more conscious of what is needed to prevent things like pandemics and climate change and all the atrocities that humans are perpetrating all over the globe. We are going to have to, as a global civilization, start creating preventative and curative and healing and nurturing and compassionate jobs. And I've always thought, my whole life as a sociologist, I've thought this has got to happen for some reason, in some way, at some time, because we've filled the globe to the extent we've never filled it before. So that is going to create all kinds of economic changes that we can't anticipate. The thing about this is, I said to the folks the other day, the new normal that comes out the other side will not be the same as the normal that went in. And this terrified them. But I'd forgotten to start by saying, there's light inside this darkness. The antithesis of your worst fear is the truth waiting to be discovered. And when you start to live according to the light inside you, which you examine because of the darkness, when you start to live by it, everything around you starts to be blessed and to benefit, because you go into the state of calm, compassion, and nurturance. And now more than ever, people know how valuable that is. People are starting to really get how valuable that is. So this is the thing. Get scared, find the fear, find fault with your fear, see where it doesn't match the facts, and then antithesis. Then you put it down, wait till you get scared again, work through that again. And as you do it over and over and over again, it starts to become very quick. The fear doesn't last as long because you go into your fearlessness practice quicker, and you really do gain strength. And they can see it on brain scans. People who do these kinds of meditations actually have less activity in the part of the brain that is associated with fear. And in fact, that part of the brain shrinks in many people. So there's structurally less fear in the brain. If we don't practice fearlessness in times like this, fear can get bigger. So it's kind of do fearlessness or do fear, because whatever you do right now is going to get bigger for quite a while. But what a great chance to be fearless. So I'd like to invite Rowan the Gracious Badger back to tell me the things that have been appearing on my screen, but which I cannot read because of my advanced age.
Because of her refusal to wear eyeglasses on screen.
I'll wear them, I just can't see them. We'll have this argument later.
We can talk about this offline. Oh, so many great questions already, Marty. So a few people were asking early on about, can past traumas make this more complicated? How do you atrophy a fear-filled neural pathway from early childhood? Questions like that.
So good. Yeah, it's a funny thing. If you've had trauma earlier in your life, you're actually more capable of going through a crisis calmly because you've been to that level of terror before and it's been stored inside you. So if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, you're kind of always in fear, but then when a catastrophe hits, you're the calm one. So it's a kind of, there's a little bit of goodness in that. And I've experienced that myself. And how you atrophy that overgrown fear spot in the brain is that you rob it of energy. And you do that by interrupting the thoughts that you typically think and forcing yourself to think different thoughts. So this whole process, what it does is there's a connection that goes along specific neurons that's associated with what you've been traumatized in. And the more often you think that thought, like, oh boy, now I'm going to be destroyed. I'm going to be destroyed. I'm going to be destroyed. The more you think that thought, the more electrical energy goes through that neuron synapse. But if you say, I'm going to be destroyed, wait, is that absolutely for certain true? It tears, like you start to drive off road and the brain will often go, I don't know what this is. What is happening? But that is a good sign because it means you've kept the energy from running into the space of the brain that is causing your fear and making it even stronger and bigger. It's a confusing feeling, but you will learn to love it because it is courage in the making.
Brilliant.
What else?
So what about when, this is just sort of bastardized from something Donna asked, what about when you are feeling fear but you can't locate the exact nature of the fear, put words to it, and it's more general? What do you do then?
What I would do is question my fears about the fear. So this fear will always haunt me. I can't find this. I can't escape this fear. Are you absolutely certain? You do occasionally fall asleep. You do occasionally in the middle of a really good sandwich forget to be afraid. Or somebody will tell you a joke and you'll laugh out loud. And in that instant, the fear can't threaten you. So you're thinking the thought, this fear will never leave me. But in fact, it already is leaving you repeatedly. So then you do the opposite. I can escape this thought. Pretty simple. Oh yeah, I can. And one of the ways I can do it is by the very process of inquiry that I'm using right now, because the one observing is not afraid. The one observing the fear is not afraid. As soon as you really learn that, you have much more courage.
You're a pretty smart lady, you know that?
Nah.
Yeah, no, you are.
Nah.
Does this work for sadness?
No, it's a little different. Fear is generally fear of the sadness we're going to have to feel if we let in the situation of change. So it's called anticipatory grief. Most of our fear is thinking, oh my God, I will lose things or I'll lose my health. And then I know what happens next. It's the grieving process. Sadness. Sadness, unlike fear, fear is unnecessary for compassion. In fact, if you're fearless, you're much more compassionate, at least if you've healed your fears. But sadness is part of the way we melt down the ego structures that were in place before a loss or a change and grow into a different being that has a different way of making meaning and a more global and generous and compassionate worldview. It does make us stronger, but where fearlessness is a strength where you can really use the mind, sadness is where you have to wrap yourself up in heart and hold yourself emotionally. We had a day the other day where we were working and I just was flaking out. And after a few hours, Rose said, oh, I thought you were in the kind of the place where working would make you feel better, that kind of fear. But in fact, you were in that place where you needed to be soothed. So you were grieving. And I was like, you make a solid point. Not so dumb yourself, gracious badger. So yes, sadness, you hold yourself, you wrap yourself up, you get comfort, you get a cup of cocoa, you call your friend or your mother or your sister or whoever it is that makes you feel best in the world. You read a book that calms you and comforts you. That's one of my favorites. And you offer yourself love, 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 and the sadness will pass. Yes.
Beautiful. So this is the kind of question that I'm about to read that is you're probably not going to find in your non-gathering room, this sort of place questions, but I'm going to put it to you.
Yeah.
This is from Emily, and she is talking about all the things she's loving about this time. Going deeper in quiet, silence, reading, meditation, walking, no social obligations, more time with my son. And she says she's actually feeling some resistance and fear to going back to the way life was. How to prepare to return in a more balanced way? Isn't that a great question?
Yeah. There's an Asian sort of literary trope or societal trope about people who want to achieve enlightenment. And so they know that the best way to do that is to go sit by yourself alone, which is where a lot of us find ourselves these days. So they go and they sit, but unlike, say, monks and nuns in medieval Europe, who were then alone, they were cloistered or by themselves or in silent orders or whatever for the rest of their lives. In Asia, the monk would work, or the nun would work until he or she gained enlightenment and then go back to the cities and be among the people. But a person who's awake, enlightened, who has no more fear and who's full of compassion, never experiences society the same way again. So your world is changing. And because you're seeing the goodness of it, it sounds to me like this is somebody who's gotten over a lot of fear, who's reached a state of fearlessness, probably through going through a lot of awful things and becoming strong in the broken places. And because of that, you're experiencing this as benevolent. And because of that, your inside world is being shifted and you're being given an interval of time, just like a nun or monk in the Asian forest or mountains. You're being given a space of time in which to awaken. And I truly think that this is not a destruction, it's a transformation. And the transformation will involve our personal awakening, many, many of us. So never be afraid, because you might go back to the same thing, but it won't be the same you going back. And that will change everything. And you will love your life no matter what.
Yeah. And we're getting the opportunity to learn what we value so much anyway, and the other way isn't necessarily imposed on us, that part of this silence and space is, how do I want to create it after?
Yeah. Yeah, we really are being given an opportunity to design our lives. When I first started coaching, I didn't call it coaching. I called it designing. And
so cool.
What you need to design a life is freedom from old structures. So yes, it's terrifying that so many people have lost their jobs. I mean, thank God this virus, the majority of patients recover, but the economy and people, your job, we don't know what's going to happen. But here's the thing. I've been coaching for 20 years, and almost everyone who's come to me dead on their feet, lifeless, was either in a bad relationship or a terrible job. And the jobs were the worst because they were designed by this monstrous, rapacious capitalism that just makes more and more stuff and tries to make us into factory chinks that are putting together material wealth. And they're not in accordance with our hearts, with the natural side of our lives. So jobs in general are very deadening. They're a scourge. I mean, turn that thought around. The pestilence, the pandemic is coming and it's ruining our jobs. Well, what if the jobs were ruining the world for us before the pandemic ever came, and the pandemic is ruining the jobs to save our lives?
I love that.
Without those ties, you can just wake up in the morning. You can wake up in the morning these days and go, I can wear anything I want. No one's going to see me at all.
At least waist down, right?
We do not actually clean very much anymore. Because,
ourselves, our house.
Yeah, just the smell of us is not great.
We're becoming
Nobody knows. Nobody cares. We bathe occasionally. But my point is, you can see this as destruction or you can see it as liberation. And I'm going to repeat my quote from the Buddha to end this. Wherever you find the ocean, whatever form it takes, you can know it's the ocean because it tastes of salt. And wherever you find enlightenment, no matter what strange or frightening form it takes, you know it's enlightenment because it always tastes of freedom. There is a massive freedom abroad in our world, everyone. And if we can learn to be fearless, we'll see that in every day, in every moment. And what was a horror can become a wonder. I love you all so much.
And if you guys want more of this than you're getting from the Gathering Room, Martha's new course, which is called Practical Wayfinding: How to Thrive When Everything's Falling Apart, which is about this. It's all about
the pandemic,
yeah,
and ways to get through it. Yes.
Just a little heads up that that's actually closing on Tuesday. So if you want to go check it out now, I think I've put the link in the little description of this video. And finally, Martha, you don't know this, but the biggest buzz of this Gathering Room has been about this little object behind us here. Oh. And I was wondering if you would like to tell the peeps what we're looking at.
This actually is a picture of I have a fantasy story in my head that I have not yet written, but it's a sequel to my previous novel, Diana Herself. And it's about how nature comes to reclaim the world and how the transformation of consciousness occurs. And the hero, this little man right here, is someone who has to be set free. You know, Diana Herself, Diana was this nobody who got thrown on a trash heap when she was born. But this guy, he has a great job. He's lived at the top of a skyscraper and he's miserable. And for him to awaken, he has to come down from the gray tower. So it's like the princess now has to free the prince in the gray tower instead of vice versa. And he is reborn in the forest. And when I painted this, I put in the structure of a cathedral. So if you look carefully, here's the rosette, the stained glass. And then these are all the pillars, and all the branches overhead are they're based on the arches of a medieval cathedral. So thank you for noticing that. It's a painting about the transformation of consciousness and the saving of the world and what we're all here to do. So thanks for asking. I love you.
She's quite a clever lady.
I see you later.
We'll see you next
love
week.
You.
Guys. Bye.
Bye.